Okay, this is Moshe coming to you from Israel and the Galilee, and we got a lot going on, obviously, today with the war with um, Iran and America, and it is a war. It's no longer a uh, a skirmish or a ceasefire or anything like that. Both parties have finished with the concept of a ceasefire. That's off the table. Okay, so today is the 9th of July, and it's about, what time is it? It's about 8 o'clock, a minute or two from 8 o'clock. 75 degrees now in the Galilee, and we're going to hit, no, 77, sorry. We're going to hit 90. Not that bad. Not that bad. Okay. Um, we're going to go through what happened last night, what's going to happen, what we believe, I believe, that Iran's motives are right now, and I'll lay it out to you. In other words, their plan of attack against America. And I'm going to spell it out for you, and it'll make, uh, when you see it and I lay it out, it'll make perfect sense to you. Oil went up, but not much. A little while ago, the Brent was 78 something a barrel. That's Europe, and the American was about 75. But that's going to keep going up by the day. And the silver's all the way down at 57, and the gold's around 4,050. Why is that happening? Because the speculative money doesn't see them making any substantial gains right now with gold and silver. In other words, not doubling or making a 50% gain, but they definitely see that in oil. So they're putting the money in there. So the demand for people buying the gold and the silver um, paper version, the phony stuff where you're just gambling, right? You don't have any possession, and try to get possession. Good luck with that. So those people are not the people that go to a pawn shop or some metals dealer and actually go and buy gold and silver, okay, and keep it in the house. That's a different person. That's a way smaller market, probably 1/50th of the people that buy and sell the paper, or maybe 1/1000th. It's a minuscule portion compared to the ones that do it on paper. You know, it's not minuscule. It's much, much, much less. Okay, so in reality, it's probably a good time to acquire gold and silver because this is looks like it's going to get to be. I think we're at the beginning of the wild ride with America getting it, and Iran going down, and Edom, which is Yemen, going down. I think we're in the beginning of the ride now. Trump seems to be coming out of anesthesia, not completely. He's still a little groggy, but his clarity of vision seems to be far better than what it was last week. So, but he's still not yet there. He's still, I'll strike him a few times and they'll go make a deal. He doesn't understand they're never going to make a deal. It ain't never going to happen. He doesn't understand it. And if they did make a deal, it's just to gain advantage and then break the deal. They've gained their advantage. They rebuilt. He let them throw fit amounts of oil money out there. Okay? They were sending all these super tankers over to China with large amounts of money. So they got a refreshing of the money. Okay? Uh, it's really not clear in the news. Did Trump actually let them get their hands on 12 or $19 billion of money, or it got interrupted, or they never got it? I don't know. I'm assuming they got some of it anyway. So, they're ready to go to war now. Um, and they're also collecting lots of money on tolls. So we're going to go through what happened, which is boilerplate. You can hear that anywhere. But I'm going to explain to you what Iran is really trying to do. Okay? And you're not going to hear that. Okay? And, Fox and CNN, I doubt they're going to tell it to you. There are people that know what Iran's going to do. There's a small amount, but they're not the big news media people. The big news stations aren't going to really explain what's going on, because when you understand it, you're going to realize how Trump is in the trick bag, and he can't come out of this. Okay, um, he can't get out of it. It's just a question of, he's got what they would call in psychology avoidance conflict. Okay, he can't sit still. He has to avoid that, and he doesn't want to run away, because then they're going to dominate the Middle East, and they're going to make everybody in the Middle East sell oil off the U.S. dollar and throw America into hyperinflation, like, I mean, really bad. Okay, um, he probably they would probably accomplish a 25-30% hike in price of everything. Okay. So if you're buying bread, I don't know what bread is. Let's say $3 a loaf. I have no idea what it costs. Um, it could be 3.75 or 3.90. It's not going to be $8. Okay, but your eggs are also going to go up. So if you're paying for a dozen eggs, I don't know, let's say $1. Now you're going to pay $1.30. And if you're paying $8 for hamburger meat, you're going to pay $10.40. Do you understand? Your tomatoes and your oranges are up. Your milk is up. Okay, everything you buy, shoes, a hat, a steak knife, anything, you name it, it's up. A bathing suit, suntan lotion, whatever, vitamin C, it's all going to go up. So everything goes up another 30%. You know how bad it is in America? Now, the gasoline isn't going to go up 30%. That's going to double to triple. That combined with, 25-30% price hikes on everything else, it's going to be crippling economically to America. People are no longer going to go out and postpone buying, what would you call it, elective items. What's an elective item? You don't need it, okay? What's a mandatory item? Food, milk, butter, that kind of stuff, right? But, what's an elective item? Bottled water, Evian. Well, you're going to give that up and go for the tap water. Understand? What else? You might not keep your car because you can't afford to drive it anymore. Or you keep it and you hardly use it. The value of used cars, except for the highly economical ones, is going to go down like, and that's going to cause the auto industry a real problem. And what the auto industry is going to do, because they're dirty dogs, they worry about themselves. What they're going to do is they're going to drop the prices of their new cars tremendously. They're going to start with zero down payment. They're going to start with low interest rates. Okay? They're going to give 1,500 rebates. Stuff like this. What are they trying to do? They're trying to get the inventory out of their warehouses, out of their storage lots, out of the dealer's inventory into your garage. And they'll cut pricing like crazy. Why? Because let me take a quick look at this. Why are they're going to cut the pricing? Why? Because they just want to get their cars moved out, get them out on the street, get rid of them, okay? And that is going to drop the price of the used cars worse than what already is going on. People are going to sit there, they're going to pay $8, $10, $12 a gallon in their pump. It looks like that's on the way, guys. It looks like it's on the way. And they're sitting there going to say, well, what the heck am I going to do? You know, I can't spend that much money on that, you know. And then they sit there and say, well, if I buy a small car that gets 42 miles a gallon instead of 15 with my SUV, I'm in much better shape, and the payment is only going to be, you know, $220 a month, and I could do it without a down payment. Let me go buy one of those cars. So they go down and they buy one of those cars. It's just cheaper for them to make the payment and pay the insurance than to start paying, you know, let's say $10 a gallon. If you live not, you know, 2 blocks from a supermarket, right, and you got to drive maybe 10 minutes to go to the supermarket, you know, you're gonna, in the summer, your air conditioning's on, your SUV, your pickup or something, you probably burn a gallon coming and going. That's $10 on your grocery bill, you know. Guys, you're gonna get hit. You're not gonna get boom. You're gonna get boom, 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 boom. But it keeps banging you every day. Boom, bada boom, bada boom, bada boom, bada boom. You know. That's your Trump for you. If he never would have shut the war down and just kept bombing them when he had them on the run, you wouldn't be here today. But his moron thought process of making a deal with Iran, the art of the deal, is why you're having all these problems. Because this is moron idea. Nobody in the Middle East that got their head screwed on halfway would ever believe what Trump was doing in Iran would ever get anywhere. I mean, I'm talking the Arabs, the Jews, we all know. All right, I'm going in the live stream real quick. Okay, let me see what's going on here. Citizen vigilante, I understand. Somebody's running around here. What is this? Supreme Canon. Could Supreme Canon please send me an email? Let me know who you are, because I'm not familiar with that name right now. Now, it could be that something wrong with my brain, but I'm not understanding who Supreme Canon is. It's not Wordsmith. Not familiar with that name. Maybe you're one of my older I don't know what's going on, and you're blocking people like crazy. I'd like to hear from you. Okay, I'm gonna put a post up in there. And it's not gonna take long. Was the U.S. destroyer hit today? I did not hear anything about that. Um, I looked through lots of social media this morning, and I didn't pick even a hint of that. So I'll check one place really quickly right now that is known for false news spreading, and I wonder if that's where it's coming from. No, it's not one of the usual suspects. No, I don't know. Uh, you got me on. I got one other source here. I'm going to check Google, see if anything. No, I'm not. I'm not seeing any signs of a destroyer that got hit. He keeps the destroyers away pretty good. Oh, okay, okay. I remember the model. I just hadn't seen you for a while. That's. I'm sorry. Okay, thank you for helping. I just was slipped my mind. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Sorry, hadn't seen you around for a while doing that. So, okay. Apologize. All right. So, um, let's do some praise, which is rarely ever done on the internet, huh? And go from there. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 Jehovah. There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay, I'll do a quick prayer. My Heavenly Father Jehovah, I pray for a good live stream today, good broadcast, no problems on the technical side, and we understand what's going on, and the people understand it, and we have good Bible work as well. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. We're also, time allowing, which I think it will, we're going to do 1 Corinthians chapters 3 and 4 from the Salkins in Hebrew New Testament, and also from Delitzsch's Hebrew New Testament, using very old tools for translation, nothing from the churches, so we get an unbiased opinion. I want to just come right out and say right now that I illustrate the errors of the churches. What churches? All of them. The Messianic congregations do. I illuminate these errors in the scriptures, and I show you where they're breaking the scriptures and where their doctrines don't line up with the scriptures. Okay? So I want you to understand that I am not a churchianity guy. Okay? I illuminate the errors that these people make. And if you don't like that and you would prefer to listen to Pastor Bob or Pastor Mary instead of paying attention to your scriptures, this is the wrong place for you. Because we're scripture driven. We go by the scriptures. We don't go by what the guy with the big building is doing on Sunday from 9 to 11. Okay, who lives in these buildings anyway? Did you ever see the apostles take money and go out and buy real estate with big parking lots and lawns and make a big building that nobody lives in? Or did they take the money from the people when they sold their real estate? Read the book of Acts chapter 2 and support the needs of the people that needed help. You better ask yourself that. So if you don't like following the scriptures and going by the scriptures, you're going to hate me. Okay? All right. So let's talk about what happened in Iran. First of all, I want to tell you that the Iranians are psychotics, okay? And I want to tell you that they're not in reality, okay? They're nuts, okay? And their general attitude is, Iran's been demolished, but we're still standing here. We got our underground missile cities. We're launching missiles, and we're winning. Okay? The fact that, $2 trillion of damage is done to the country is irrelevant. We're still here. The fact that, 97,000 Iranians were killed is irrelevant. They're martyrs. They went up to heaven. They're in paradise. See, so if they're still there, they won. They still have their land. If they're dead, they win. How do they lose? They surrender, or they stop fighting and run away. That's how they lose. Got it? Now, I don't think Trump got it. You know more than Trump right now. Now, that doesn't mean people didn't tell Trump that. It means he doesn't believe it. Okay. All right. So he threatened to attack him heavy last night, and he did. So we're starting to see Trump get a little bit, no, not a little, a lot more into reality with these people. The Iranians did counterattack again last night, and when I can't confirm this, but it appears that Bahrain, who got hit by them again, counterattacked. In other words, launched missiles or aircraft into Iran and attacked Iran. But I can't get it confirmed on that. It appears that it happened, but I can't get it confirmed. Okay. America says they hit 100 targets last night. They did. Mostly they were concentrating on the coastal cities. What America is trying to do is stop Iran from being able to monitor the Persian Gulf transit. So, in other words, they are able to see with their radar eyes ships going in the southern route, furthest away from Iran. They call it the Oman route. And they want the ships to come closer to the Iranian route, and they want them to pay tolls. And they have, in a self-appointed manner, decided to declare themselves the supreme leaders of the Persian Gulf. In other words, this is our Persian Gulf. Now, that's idiotic. First of all, they never built it like the Suez Canal or the Panama Canal. They did nothing. They're just saying this is ours. That's what Hitler would do. Okay? You want to pass, you pass $1 million or maybe $2 million, depending how big your boat is. Okay? Now I'm telling you, the part B of this story, if they get that, if Trump lets them get away with that, and they keep doing it, in a matter of a few weeks or days or a month or whatever, maybe 2 months, they're going to tell the people that they must give them assurances that the oil is not traded in US dollars, because if it's being sold for US dollars, you're helping the enemy. Okay? Probably also they'll block euros. Okay? That will drop the value of the American dollar by a lot. Probably 20%, 30%. In addition, that's going to, of course, lead to your inflation. And if you think your employers are going to go down and say, well, here's a 25% cost of living raise, you're kidding yourself. What the Social Security Administration will do, those crooks, is they'll go out and say, well, the cost of living went up 1.3% this year because in there they have housing prices. How many people on Social Security or disability or SSI or all of those programs actually go out and buy a home? Practically none. It's a false basket of expenses. That doesn't apply to them when the price of housing goes down. If the house went from 220,000 to 156,000, they still can't go and buy it. Okay? That's how they do it. So the cost of living goes up and they rob the Social Security recipients. Trump too. Hey, how's your $2,000 stipend Trump said was going to come this spring? Did you spend it already? Oh, you didn't know you got it. Well, you didn't know you got it because you never got it. You never did it. The reality of this thing is Obama and Biden were probably better for the poor people than Trump, although they were rotten with Social Security. Under Biden, his last year, they gave an increase of 2 point something percent, 3%, 5%, something, on Social Security because, again, they're dropping housing prices. And if the price of new cars goes down and the price of housing goes down, buying a house, I'm talking about, well, then they drop your cost of living. But the Social Security, SSI, disability, survivor insurance and all that is not, and the people that get VA payments, which I think is SSI, maybe it's different, I don't know. These people are spending their money on what? Rent, gasoline, They're not buying new cars very often, if at all. Gasoline, clothing, food, and food, and food, and food. That's a big expense with them, is food. That's where the money is going. So the food goes up 25%. You should give them at least 15% boost in Social Security just on that. But they don't. And they won't. And if you have a Republican or a Democrat, they're not going to do it because they can't stand the poor people. They'd rather see you drop dead. The sooner you die, the better it is for them. You're off the Social Security rolls. And you're going to tell me they don't think that way? You don't know your Satan bots. Trump would sit there and take great pleasure in private circles and say, in my second term, I accelerated the death of 19 million Social Security recipients. You don't understand them if you believe that they're really nice people. Okay? So, what Trump is trying to do is this. Why is he hitting the coastal installations? Because he doesn't want Iran to be able to recognize or be aware of ships using the southern route, the Oman route. Okay? So taking radar out is what accomplishes that. All right? They can also surveillance the area. How? Drones, boats, go fast boats, whatever, right? The go fast boats probably have a little radar unit in them. Maybe something that goes 80, 100 miles, or maybe they put 200. I don't think ship radar really will go more than 200 miles. Now, if you're on a cruise ship that costs $1.7 billion, it probably has radar that'll go 300-400 miles or something like that, But generally, they don't go very far. Okay? They don't need to. They're not at war. And they're running radar 100 to 200 miles. That's all they usually need. But a smaller boat, a 60, 70-foot boat, may have a much weaker radar or less efficient. So Trump wants to disable the ability of theirs. That's the radar goes. He wants to get rid of their air defense systems. There's one of their nuclear facilities they had. Trump didn't attack the nuclear facility last night. He attacked the anti-aircraft defense systems of that nuclear facility. Why? He might be wanting to send special forces over there to attack the facility just to see how they can do it. So they probably would airlift special forces on helicopters, which are not attack helicopters, they'd be transporting helicopters. And they would land, but they would be accompanied probably by at least 6 or 10 fighter jets. It'd be a mix. You'd probably have some F-15s, A-10 Warthogs with them, stuff like that. Maybe F-15s, F-16s, F-35s, F-22s. You don't need those. So they got to get the air defense systems out. Of course, helicopters are pretty vulnerable compared to a fighter jet. Okay, then what? Then they got to, before the helicopter comes to land, they got to sanitize the area and get rid of any troops around the area, okay? Any tanks around the area, any shoulder-fired missile weapons in the area. they may not be very good at this because let's say the Iranians have a tunnel near the nuclear site. Maybe the tunnel's a mile away. And they wait for the Americans to land, then these guys creep out. And they got shoulder-fired weapons, shoulder-fired missiles. They've got rifles. They've probably got a few squad machine guns. They could have RPGs. And they attack the special forces. They don't give a hoot if they're special forces. You know, special forces don't live through battles. They're not, like I knew a guy who was a recon Marine, and he told me he went to, where did he go, Iraq, I think. He told me if we get seen, we're dead. And he put in his year in the sandbox, and then he came home, and he wouldn't go back in the Marines, and he was working as a security guard for, $8 or $10 an hour. That's 20-something years ago, I guess, but he didn't want to come back. He didn't want to go back anymore. He probably could have made $3,000 a month in the Marines, but he told me he went down and talked to him, and they said to him, if you re-enlist, the recruiter wanted to put him right in. He says in 30 days you'll be back in the sandbox. So they recruit him, they send him to a base, they put him through probably testing, medical, to make sure he's okay. Then they probably have him, running, doing the obstacle course, going to the rifle range, doing that kind of stuff all day, getting brushed up, and then boom, he's back in combat. He wouldn't go back in it. I've known a bunch of Navy SEALs in my life, really Navy SEALs, and they, a lot of them never went back in again. They did their one tour, and that was it. It's got a lot of problems. It's very dangerous, really dangerous. Not only do you have trouble with getting shot in combat, you got accidents, parachuting into water, all the crazy stuff they do. Their helicopters can crash, their planes can crash. It's really, the training could kill you. Or get you very, very hurt. Okay? They have trouble with concussive forces in the head from explosives, from landing, parachuting, a bad landing, stuff like this. And they got a lot of problems from that. They get problems from chemical agents. They get all messed up, And then when you finish with it, they get problems from shrapnel, bullets, fire, chemicals, crashes of vehicles. It's very dangerous, okay? So a lot of these guys realize it, and they live through it. And then what do? Well, they finish their tour, and they just quit. Everybody shakes hands, and they go home. And that's it. They don't go back into that lifestyle. A lot of them are the opposite. They thrive on the adrenaline rush. These guys have about 100% divorce rate. Okay. Yeah. They have about a perfect divorce rate. They they get mentally changed, and they're never home. The big thing is they go on deployments, and that's how they get ahead with deployments. So they go out. Sometimes they're out for 2 weeks, a month. Other times they're out for 6 months. They come home. Something happens. They're gone for 2.5 months. They come home. They stay home for a few months, and then they're gone again. And the wife is basically raising the kids, being herself. And if she's not got kids, just the wife and the guy, she's sitting there, why am I married? I'm like being single. I walk around an empty house all day. Oh, he puts the checks in the bank, auto deposit. She's got, every month the rent is paid, the car payments are done, the food is, it's an easy ride, but, she's living by herself. I mean, some of them might say, well, we go 20 years, and he might have went in at 18 with 38, he could retire, something like that. I don't know if you could pull your pension if you're that young. I don't know. I never pay attention. Okay, look, that could be what he's going to try to do, to show them that he could go into these fortified places. A nuclear place is fortified like a missile city, perhaps more so, and see if the Green Berets, the Navy SEALs, the Recon Marines, the Rangers, the Delta Forces, etc., just can go in there and take it apart. The Air Force Special Forces would be very well suited to help the Navy SEALs or Recon Marines land. They're used to going into, they're trained and used to going into enemy occupied territory to find pilots and get them out of there. And they fight. They know how to fight. They can really fight. They have all kinds of tricks. They have little vehicles that are four-wheel drive. They're open. They're built out of tubing, and they go very fast. And you can drive them in deserts and beaches. I think they can even go 70, 80, 90 miles an hour, some crazy speeds. And they got a place where they can put a stretcher down and carry a guy there. And they put stuff on there. I believe it has a mortar. It can shoot mortar shells, and it has a heavy machine gun, which is, it could be a 20 millimeter, so they could penetrate vehicles, or it could be a 50. And so they got two of them in the front seats, and then they got one guy in the back that's probably standing up working as the gunner. They got other tricks too. These characters. These I knew a guy once. He was that did this. He was a very, very nice guy, and you wouldn't know. He retired from doing this, and you wouldn't know that he was a special forces guy. He wasn't like them, because they don't go on combat missions. They don't do kidnapping, they don't do assassinations, they don't do sabotage. They don't do any of that. What do they do? When pilots and the crew of a plane is down, they go in and get them out as a last resort, okay? They got to find the pilot. Now, these guys are paramedic trained, not simple first aid, like a corpsman would be, okay? They didn't take a 6-week course. They take like a 5 or 6 month course, so they could do things that are serious with somebody. They could save their life if they're busted up by the crash or the ejection, or they got shot or whatever, right? Dehydrated, hypothermia, no food, or they could have water and they have no food, stuff like that, and they know what to do, and they got a first aid kit that's like a backpack, so they're working. They're pretty much all of them are trained that way. So they'll come in, that's their job. So they don't get the head trip. They're not murderers. They go in to save the pilot, and if the enemy starts moving on them and attacking them, they fight back. But the idea is not to kill the enemy and hold a position or anything like that. The idea is to repel the enemy off you, so you can get out of there with whatever devices you have to transport into a zone where you can get an exfiltration. So they're completely different. They're rescuers, okay? Like, the Coast Guard has Coast Guard swimmers, right? I mean, they practice going 3 mile deep water swims in the freezing water in the waves that might be 8 feet, 6 feet. They swim around in this stuff all the time. You got to be a certain kind of a character. You got to have a lot of physical attributes that make it, and you've got to have the ability to not worry about getting cold. They wear insulated suits. They don't have a real big problem, which the Navy SEALs have. They generally aren't wearing an insulated suit. They do have them, but this sort of thing. And so the pararescue guys, the Air Force guys are, they parachute just like Navy SEALs do. They can parachute all different kinds of parachutes in all different kinds of atmospheres. They can land in the water if they have to, and then go to the beach. But that would not be highly regular for them. But they might need to land in the water if the pilot is in the water and he's on a raft. So they got to land in the water. They got to bring rescue equipment with them, so they would probably have that parachuted down. And they got to be pretty good at swimming, and they got to get to that pilot, and they got to get their rescue set up. They might have a big boat that they can inflate, and everybody goes in that, and it has a very sophisticated first aid package. And then they got to wait till a boat comes, or maybe they'll have an exfiltration from a helicopter. Or they might send a boat that could land in the water and get an exfiltration. But they're not nuts. The other guys, the ones that go in for the one tour and they're out in 3 or 4 years, they usually adjust reasonably okay. The ones that are in for 10, 20 years, 30 years, I don't think they adjust too good. No, I don't think so. Also, the divorce rate with the one that's just in for one tour is probably not going to be that high, because the wife and the guy decide, oh, we'll put up with it until I'm finished, and then they quit. And some of them could actually transfer out of recon Marines and Navy SEALs into another unit where they got more stability. Okay, so Trump is probably going to try that. What are the Iranians doing? Okay, the Iranians are attacking now you got to listen to this. This is their game plan, and I'm reasonably sure guys in the Pentagon know this, and they've told Trump this, but does that mean anything with Trump? I don't think so. What they're going to do is, they said it. The Iranians tell you what they're going to do. Remember this with the Iranians. They tell you what they're going to do. They do not always succeed, but they will 99% of the time attempt to succeed. Remember that. So we're going to talk about some things later. They're attacking the American bases. They want the American bases in Kuwait and Bahrain gone. The UAE bases may already be finished. They spent a lot of time attacking those, and it's possible that Trump abandoned them. Oman, I'm not even sure they have any American bases there. Jordan, a lot of American bases. Jordan is a problem, but the Iranians are not spending a lot of time and energy on Jordan. Why? Jordan does not export oil. Jordan has oil. They use it for themselves. There are two large American bases in Jordan that have to go. So they will be attacking the American bases. I don't think there's any American bases left in Iraq, and I don't believe there's anything in Syria, and hasn't been for a long time. So America is transitioning to Israel, which is not very close to Iran, but it's better than nothing, right? So they're going to knock out the capability of the American bases. Now, the troops are probably not there, or if they're there, they go underground during the attack. They don't care. They want to make the they want to make the base look like a busted up parking lot. That's what they want to do. They want to turn it into shambles. Okay? That's what they want, and that's it. It's easily done. Now, when they finish with Bahrain and Kuwait, they're going to hit Qatar, but they've already hit the Qatari bases. See, I don't know. America doesn't tell you the degree and extent of the damages on the bases, but we do know it's extensive. So when you read these reports when the attacks were going on weeks ago, oh, the missiles took down, 20 missiles came and 19 were taken down. No, it was probably more like 20 missiles came and 8 or 9 got through, something like that. So their bases get damaged enough. They've got Trump scared, not wanting to use the bases. That means not put the aircraft on the bases because they don't want the planes blown up. Okay? Believe me, they very much don't want that. Okay? Next, they want the they want to keep the troops safe. Okay. Now the Iranians have blown up the radar they've set up over there. So when they get rid of the bases, which the Iranians are going to do, the hardest bases for them to go after are going to be somewhat in Jordan and more so in Saudi Arabia. At that point, they might bring the Houthis into the fracas to attack Saudi Arabia. Or they may just try launching lots of drones and missiles from Iran into Saudi Arabia, but they got to get those bases. When they finish getting the bases, the next targets they have are going to go like this. I do not know exactly what sequence they're going to undertake this in, but I could tell you what their targets are going to be in these countries. I think one of the early targets after the bases is destroyed is going to be the airports, because they don't want to see more Patriot missile systems come in and other protective things. They don't want that. Okay? So they're not looking for that to happen. They want to shut the airports down. Shutting airports down is relatively simple, okay? Now, they don't necessarily need to do that vitally, because if the bases are not there, they're probably not bringing the weapons in, but it could happen. It's a priority they're going to want to deal with. Next is to hit the ports, to stop the oil from going out. To some extent, this has already been done. Other targets, the pipelines that move oil around inside the country. Then you come to massive oil storage tanks, okay? Now that could be something that's, 150 feet wide, and it's, 20 stories high or something. I don't know, okay? They got to get rid of those, okay? And then last but not least, which might be their first targets, is the oil wells. They're going to drop missiles in the oil wells. You see movies in LA where the cops go to a field and they're digging up a dead body, like a Dirty Harry movie or some detective movie or something like that. And you see in the background the oil wells in LA. It has, a piece of metal swinging like this, and it's got a structure, the skeletonized structure. Okay, that they got to hit those things. When they hit those things, the oil stops coming out, and the oil is not going into any pipeline anymore because it's not coming out. Then the oil that's already in the pipeline is going to rot. It's going to go bad. It's going to thicken. It's going to get a wax build up in there. Lots of problems. Why will it happen? Because you need to have a constant flow of oil through the pipeline, or it's going to deposit. It's going to sit there. So as soon as you blow their oil wells up, there's no more oil coming into their pipeline. So the oil that's in there, there's nothing moving it out. Then it's going to sit there and wreck the system. That could take months and years to clean out. Okay? So they're going to hit the refineries. They're going to shut down, believe me, they're going to shut down the oil business for Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, probably Oman, and Saudi Arabia. Okay? The only thing they're really doing with closing the Persian Gulf right now is to make trouble for the nations of the world with oil, while they execute their plan to methodically go through the attacks. So they're going to want to get the ports of these countries with the piers and how they need the ability to offload the oil to the boats, right? They're going to want to get that. They're going to want to get the ports, the piers, the pipelines, the refineries, the storage bins, and the wells. Now, let me tell you, there's an abbreviated way to do this thing. I don't know if Iran's going to take it, and that is just hit the oil wells. And yeah, there's going to be oil that is still there, that, in their storage tanks and in the refinery storage that they could sell. But I don't think Iran wants that because they could soften the blow for the world. So they're going to do multiple hits, I believe. So you don't need to close the Persian Gulf. Listen to me. Trump is trying to work on reopening the Persian Gulf. And that's why he's hitting their coastal facilities. He's going to reopen it. Is he that dumb? Doesn't he understand they're just going to knock the source off? They said they would do it. They also said, the Iranians, that they were going to hit the electric grids of these countries, and they were going to hit the water desalinators, and they already did a little of that. If you hit the electrical grid, this big metal piece that swings with the skeletonized structure of the oil well ain't going to be swinging. It's not a perpetual motion machine. There's electricity working somewhere here. I would believe, Maybe I'm wrong. Let's check that out. I don't even know. I am not an oil person. Let's find out. Do the oil wells that the Gulf states countries have require electricity to operate, or do they not need electricity? Modern oil fields in the Gulf states do require electricity, although the amount depends on the type of well and the stage of production. During drilling new wells requires a great deal of electricity for diesel-powered generators to run okay, they use generators. Many wells produce naturally because underground reservoirs pressure push the oil to the surface. However, even these fields still need electricity for, okay, all right. Do they hook the oil wells up to the electrical grid, or they put generators next to the oil wells? It depends on the location and the size of the oil field. In the Gulf states, the answer is usually both. Large oil fields are typically connected to the national or regional electrical grid through dedicated high voltage transmission lines. That's the most efficient way. And on-site power plants are also common. Okay. So they use a multitude of approaches for electricity. They, if they've got generators, they're going to be nearby. They're not going to put the generator a mile away. They're going to put the generator, 300, 500 yards away or something like that. Okay, maybe, probably more between 1 and 300 yards away. They'll put the electrical generator, the generator there. Okay, so it could be hit. Are they going to hide these generators under the ground? I doubt it. I doubt they're going to put a building around the generator with 8 foot thick reinforced concrete. No, I doubt it. So they could be on the grid. They could have their own generator. They could build an electric plant to make the electricity. There's a lot of ways to do it, and the Iranians know how to do it because they do it, and that stuff's going to get blown up. Well, they'll be afraid to do that because Trump will blow their oil fields up. Well, Trump is very scared about doing that, but he might get enough guts. I mean, it's like a carnal sin to Trump to destroy oil because it's money, and money is, everything to him. He's not going to want to do that. He might, though. He might have to do it. I think regime change is out the window. You got 80% Shiite Muslims out in the street chanting "Death to America." How the heck are you going to have a regime change? So what if Trump just says, "Okay, I attacked them twice. I'm done"? Well, they'll keep trying to attack. They're not done. They don't want to make a deal with Trump. They're done. It's over. This is it. All right, now, it's easier to destroy the oil wells, then you don't have to shut the Persian Gulf. So if Trump brings 11 destroyers in to shut the Persian Gulf with 3 submarines, it doesn't matter. They just hit the oil wells, and eventually you're going to win. Or they hit the refineries and the ports and the piers. They don't have to shut the Persian Gulf, okay? I'm hoping, well, I doubt Trump really has that. Why do I call Trump a nincompoop? Trump, in the last months, has been relying on lies to accomplish his goals. Stupid lies like a child would say. The Iranians want a deal. They called me up. They want a deal. We're close to a deal. Lying. That's not the sign of a smart person. Think about it. The sign of a smart person. Think about it. A smart person would know how to operate without having to lie, or lie in such a way that everybody knows they're lying and their credibility goes out the window. Now, the Iranians threatened the assassinations on the American facilities. It has been seen in Iran, multiple, not 1 or 2, many banners on buildings saying that they're going through with their threats to assassinate Trump and the American officials. So they're not just going for Trump. I mean, who are the ones we could assume they're also going for? Well, Witkoff, Hegseth, Kushner, Vance, Rubio, generals, stuff like that, right? Now, how are they going to do it? I don't know. Are they going to try? Yup. They could use drones, they could use missiles, they could use artillery, mortars, shoulder fired anti tank missiles, RPGs, machine guns, large explosives, all kinds of things, automobile ramming, a million different things. Okay? Are they going to be successful in their assassinations against the American officials? I don't know. If I go to Revelation 18, they're going to be somewhat uh, successful. I don't know if Iran's going to be a driving force in Revelation 18 or not. They are talking about revenge for Khomeini and they want it on American soil. Can the Iranians attack the United States by themselves? I don't see how in the world they can do that. They don't have an Air Force, they don't have a Navy. What are they going to do? Go to Delta and United and book tickets and get on the plane with their guns and their rifle? How are they going to get? They're going to swim? How are they going to get here? How are they going to get here? How are they going to get to America? How are they going to do it? I don't see it. They could infiltrate terrorists through Mexico easily and Canada, and they just do landing at sea with. They could come in on rafts at sea at night. You know, they could go 3, 4, 5 miles out and paddle in. It's things they could do. And then when they land, they pick up cell phones. They call their contact, comes down to the beach with a car, picks them up, takes them to some safe place. Could be in the woods or in a farm somewhere, and they could hide there. And I have no idea exactly what they're going to do, but I'm pretty sure they're announcing it. They've got their plans already laid out. These attacks start work with me. Rubio is already living on a military base for months. There's another one of these characters. Is it Hegseth or with Cough? So it's another one living on. There's not the only ones living on the bases. Why are they living on the bases? The bases are very secure. The bases have fences, and they probably have sensors to monitor the fences. And they have MPs or military police patrolling the perimeter of the fences, you know, driving around during the day and the night, it's always somebody watching, right? And it's cameras, and then they got guards at the entry points. So it's a controlled environment. You don't just get to walk around, okay? And so they got MPs there protecting their house on the base, so it's very hard to get them. What's going to happen is when the attempts at assassination begin, which will probably start after the weekend, when their mourning period is over, they'll maybe be successful and most likely unsuccessful, but it'll scare the daylights out of the high profile officials in America, and they're going to go underground and hide. And that gives the Iranians the propaganda value. They hide like rats in their holes. Look how scared they are. We're a world power. America's day is over. You know, that sort of thing. And they're going to get a lot of mileage out of it. Now, they're going to go after Trump. They'll probably go after Trump's family. They'll go after Vance, his family. They'll go after the cabinet. And they may go after generals and the Pentagon. I don't know how the people in the Pentagon are going to keep eating the pizzas, because it seems to me all they got to do is, you know, attack a delivery guy from one of the pizza stores and, you know, kill him and put him in the trunk of a car or something, or just tie him up and put him in a car or something, and throw poison on the pizzas and you deliver the pizzas. They're not going to let him come into a high secure location, the Pentagon. He's going to walk in, he's going to come to the desk, and they're going to say, who ordered the pizza? Oh, Chief Haley. So they said, you should call him when the pizzas are here. So then they call Chief Haley and say, do you know anything about these pizzas? Yeah, we ordered 17 pizzas. Well, come get them. And then he comes and gets them, and they have different names. They distribute them. Okay. So that's what goes on. All right. So then they poison the pizzas, but they're not going to get high-ranking people. But you know, see, it's not that hard. Okay. I imagine the Pentagon just going to sit there and say, forget about it. The answer would be to, I don't know what the answer would be. I don't know. That's the Pentagon's problem, not mine. All right, so they're not going to keep people at the Pentagon eating pizza. They're just going to get regular people. It's not going to be highly effective. They might do it. If I was working at the Pentagon, I'd brown bag it. You know, these days. It might be that if they're working late overtime, the Pentagon might buy them dinner. So, yeah, this is where we're at. So what's going to come next? Well, somebody's going to, the attacks are going to keep going. They may slow down or they may accelerate. I don't know. But I don't think Iran is finished with America by a long shot. And I don't know what Trump's up to. You know. By looking at Trump's dialogue, his dialogue is, we're teaching Iran a lesson, we're hitting them hard. And he's thinking they're going to come back and make a deal. They're not even interested in going back and negotiating with him now because they don't need to buy time. They've already refortified their facilities. This has really become a very interesting situation. And do I see other countries getting involved in this? No. Who? China? They're not happy. They're going to not be getting their oil. But they just got a bunch of boatloads of oil, so they're not that unhappy. Russia can't do anything. Russia's hanging on fighting Ukraine. They're in a You know, what is the story with Russia and Ukraine? Russia goes boom, 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 and Ukraine walks back. Their teeth are loose. They're bleeding in their mouth. Their nose is bleeding. They're dizzy. They're shaking. Right. All right. 2 days later, Iran goes to Russia. Boom, bada boom, bada boom, and then Russia's walking around with a bloody nose and teeth knocked out. You know, they're like at a tie. Weapons come into Ukraine through Poland. They fly them into Poland, then by train or vehicle trucks or whatever, they bring them into Poland. So Russia keeps thinking about attacking Poland. Well, they've been talking about attacking Poland for years. They haven't done it. Okay. Um, why these attacks are happening at night is interesting. I think that America's afraid of old, antiquated anti-aircraft things like 40 millimeter guns that aren't radar controlled, where you have a big metal sight with circles and a guy sits in a chair and go boom, 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 you know, a flak gun, you know. Um, Maybe that they're afraid of that. Because if the pilots are coming in low to drop the bombs, they could be seen visually, but at night it's way more difficult. Radar works day and night. So what are they doing night? Why are they doing the attacks at night? They were afraid of something. Must be that old, antiquated anti-aircraft stuff. Okay, let's see if we missed anything here. Uh, Multiple explosions were heard in Kona Rock, Sistan, and Balcheristan, those provinces of Iran, mostly coastal areas. Uh, Surprisingly, Trump hit 2 railroad bridges. Remember I told you about that? You have overpass or bridges where, you know, the train goes over that and, you know, it's a couple 100-foot drop down to a river or a valley or something. Well, he did it. That was, in my opinion, a good move. They were using the railroad to send China oil, and I don't know what the empty train was bringing back from China, but I'll bet you it was bringing something back, weapons. Well, that's no. You know what? That's not possible because those are oil tanker cars, and they got to bring them back. So no, they weren't bringing anything back from China. No. I imagine these bridges were strategically selected to make it more difficult for the Iranians to get their oil out on the railroad. You know, hitting a bridge is extremely smart. Why? Because you're not going to rebuild a bridge in 6 months. It might take you, depending on the bridge, 2 years, you know. And then the Americans just wait for it to be rebuilt and then blow it up again. Um, Contrary to what Iran was claiming, Israel was not involved in the attacks last night. Now, if Israel was involved, it could have been covertly involved, helping America with target packages or getting intel, stuff like that. But did Israeli jets fly over there and drop bombs and missiles and rockets? No, no. We'll probably find out today or tomorrow, I guess, if Bahrain really did counterattack. Probably they did. They may have shot missiles. They may have, more than likely, sent some planes up there with bombs. They did hit an Iranian airport last night, the Americans, but it was, I don't know why they hit it. It was a small rinky dink airport. It wasn't any really big thing, but there must have been a reason. Maybe because it was small rinky dink, it was being used for receiving weapons or sending weapons out. I don't know. So I'm telling you, if the Iranians said they're going to assassinate the American officials, high ranking officials, they will attempt to go through. They may fail, but they're definitely going to drive the American officials underground. The ship traffic in the Persian Gulf by late last night was down to nothing. There was a couple of residual ships that were in process of passing, I think in favor in the Iranian uh, sanctioned area, paying tolls or something. And they finished their journeys, but that was it. So the traffic in the Persian Gulf, you could assume right now, is zero. Zero. I'm checking my notes. Uh, the Iranians are saying they want to bring about an economic catastrophe on America. And probably all the infidel world. Remember, if the Iranians can always sell oil to the other Muslim countries for $50, $60 a barrel, even though it's $300 out there, to try to keep them preserved while the infidels collapse economically. They won't be able to do that, though. You're talking about world collapse, and the Iranians are saying we're collapsed. Look, we're getting our currency is worthless. We've got sanctions on us again, and we're in bad shape. So they'll take the world down. They've probably already driven the American officials into hiding. So what's going to happen is you got to understand the American bases are already shifting to Israel, and it's probably by next week the vast majority of the American troops and equipment and planes and everything is going to be in Israel. They had a bunch of refueling tankers up in the air day before last night, night before last. That's English. Got to remember English. Night before last, and they returned. The refueling tankers returned to Israel. So Iran is going to force the Americans to be attacking them with their planes from further distances. It's going to help the Iranians, but not much. It's not going to help much. No. No. What Trump has to do is take out those missile cities. And if he can't do that, you're going to see him attempting to negotiate with Iran again. If you could imagine that, I don't even know how. But that's what his approach will be. If he can take those missile cities, those missile launch sites that are underground, put in the side of mountains, stuff like that, if he can do it, then he's not going to be, he's going to be more interested in playing wipeout with them. The fact that they attacked 6 ships in 24 hours to close the Persian Gulf gives Trump great amount of credit with Congress. Okay, it doesn't look like Trump's just running around out there saying, "Hey, let's get the Iranians," you know. It sure looks like the Iranians provoked it, which they did. And Congress isn't going to be leaning on him, I don't believe, on this front. I don't see why. They could say, listen, the Persian Gulf's not our problem, Donald. Come home, pull out of the Middle East. Let Europe deal with it. I don't know. Could happen, I don't see it. If he does that, then he has no chance of ever getting their oil. I don't think he ever does anyway, because they'll just blow their own oil wells up. Trump did say he was going to destroy the power and water stations, but I don't want to do that. See, somebody's telling him that's going to be how you end it. If the Iranians are in their missile cities and Trump can't blow their missile cities up, and they realize they no longer have a country, because without electricity and without the water, the people are going to leave. Then they defend. Well, they may still stay. They're nuts. They got food in there, they got water in there, military ration type stuff, right? They're going to be there a long time. Trump's saying he's giving them warnings, he's going to strike them with force. Did he do that? He did. He did do it. Oh, he really did. How many American planes did he lose? None. How many ships did he lose? None. How many Americans got killed? I don't know if somebody could have got killed or hurt on the bases they were attacking. I don't know. They're going to go underground and hide from these attacks like Khomeini did. And the public appearances are going to drop off, and the Iranians are going to just love that. But it doesn't mean a lot. Really doesn't. The Lebanese threatened to skip the Rome conference with the talks unless the IDF, Israel Defense Forces, the Army, withdraws from what they're calling pilot zones in Lebanon. And Trump says not yet. Not Trump, Netanyahu says no, it's premature. We're not doing it yet. Now, because this is going on, and even the Donald is running around saying, "Oh, there's no ceasefire, no memorandum of understanding, an MOU, nothing." He's going to go whole hog on Hezbollah now. Something's up with Trump's Air Force One. He was in the NATO conference in Ankara, Turkey, and from there he flew to the UK, but he did not use his new Qatar $400 million gifted jet. The Secret Service wanted him to go on Air Force One because Air Force One has better defense mechanisms than the Qatar jet. And they said that they have to wait to So the Qatar jet was used for Trump to take from the UK back to America, because they probably assumed the UK is going to, be flying. He'll have fighter jet escorts until he's probably out 30 or 50 miles in the ocean, maybe 100 miles. And then they'll turn back. Maybe they'd even go 200 miles with him when he's way out in the middle of the ocean. The Secret Service probably figures there's not much of a threat, but the flight from Turkey to the UK bothered them. So Trump likes this plane because it's the long haul. No, wait a minute. I think he left it in the UK. Oh, no, I got that wrong. Wait. Something's missing. I heard he was going to leave it in the UK and let the troops, the military, examine it. But that could have just been for the day or something. That could have already happened, and he's flying back to America with it. But I understand he is taking that one back to America. And the Air Force One, the original older one, will go back too. Air Force One has the same type of blinding defensive mechanism to blind missiles that we put on the El Al jets, and I imagine Netanyahu has it also. And they also have another system on there, and they have the ability to deploy chaff, CHAFF, which would be like hot metal burning, like magnesium or something, that, little pieces of it out in the sky. So if the missile is following a heat signature, it gives it several heat signatures that are extremely hot, like glowing magnesium or something. So it may consider that that's a better target than the jet engine and go for the chaff and go off target and miss the plane. And then it also has the ability to blind its radar, electronic warfare against the missile. So are they going to set the Qatari plane up with that or not? I don't know. They may not do it. They may not. It may not be suitable or adaptable to that. I don't know. Putting the chaff in there wouldn't be much of a challenge. I think that'd be pretty easy. The other thing hangs down on the bottom of the plane. So now with these threats, I would think the Secret Service would want Trump using those kind of planes, the older one. The newer one, they want him on the older one. So let me read this. He did go to the UK, I believe. Oh, wait a minute. Wait. The new plane does not yet include all of the defensive systems found on the older Air Force One. They said the decision to switch aircraft before departing Turkey was a precautionary measure taken on the recommendation of the Secret Service, not in response to any specific or credible threat. I agree with them. Trump denied that the change was made for security reasons. He said the newer aircraft departed earlier so it could stop at U.S. military bases, allowing service members to see what they described as a magnificent airplane. Later, however, Trump suggested that the decision might indeed have been related to the threats against him. When Trump departed Ankara, Turkey, he boarded the older Air Force One, and he got on it very quickly before the traveling press had time to watch or photograph him climbing the stairs to the plane. Contrary to normal protocol, that's because he's afraid of assassination. You got that? Okay, see, it's starting to work. I'm explaining that to you, but the regular people haven't figured that out yet. They will. In addition, passengers were instructed to lower the window shades before takeoff. They didn't want any sniper getting a fix on Trump. The aircraft landed overnight at RAF Mildenhall in the UK, where Trump transferred to the new Qatari plane and departed. He's using the Qatari gifted plane for the flight back to Washington. After departure, the president acknowledged that the decision may have been connected to the threats from Iran. According to sources familiar with the capabilities of the new aircraft, it does not yet include all the defensive systems found on the older Air Force One. They said no decision to switch aircraft before departing Turkey was a precautionary. They said the decision was a precautionary measure based on the Secret Service. Trump did admit that it could be related to threats against him. The New York Times carried this story about the plane. So we're starting to see, I would say, soft measures uh, of protection for Trump out of fear of assassination. Okay, so the Secret Service themselves is aware that the Iranian uh, threats are credible, and they have ability possibly to carry it out successfully, or they wouldn't bother with it. They would just, shrug it off. Okay. I'm gonna wait and see if my wife finishes the vacuuming. I have no idea in the world why she has to vacuum right now during the broadcast. It's drowning out my broadcast, by the way. Okay, let's go to the Bible study now. There's not much else to cover with the war. We just got to watch and see how it develops. Let me find where I'm going to do First Corinthians 3 and 4, chapter 3 and 4, from Salkinson, uh, translating it into, taking it from the Hebrew New Testament into English without any church influence on the translation guidelines, and also Delitzsch's Hebrew New Testament with ditto on the translation not being influenced by church doctrine or tradition, using secular translation sources. Okay, so chapter 3, verse 1. And I, brothers, was not able to speak to you as to spirit driven men, but rather as to flesh masses. Delitzsch translates it as men of the flesh, and men of the spirit and men of the flesh. Okay. Delitzsch has got a pretty good handle on that. As to unweaned infants in the designated king, in Yeshua, the king. Okay. So he was saying he was talking to them as infants. In other words, new believers. We'll develop it as we go. You'll see. Verse 2. I caused you to drink milk and not solid meal. Delitzsch Drink milk and not solid food, slabs, meat, you know. For you were not yet capable, and even up to now, you were not capable uh, to chew the meat. It's like an infant without teeth. They can't eat meat. They drink milk or maybe cereal and stuff like that. Verse 3 because you are still dominated by the flesh mass. So you're dominated by the flesh. How does he put it? Delich says, because you are still fleshly, whatever, right? Salkinson's a little clearer, because you were still dominated by the flesh. They haven't beaten the flesh down yet. By the flesh, for since there is among you burning jealousy, Delich says contention among you, and are you not fleshy? And Salkinson says, because of the burning jealousy and throat strife. Okay, throat strife is new to me. Are you not fleshy, walking according to the custom of mere earthborn men? Saying because you're jealous and you're strifing with each other or contending with each other over jealousy, you're behaving like regular people, not believers. Okay? So you're in the flesh, you're following the flesh, not the spirit. Okay, verse 4. For when a man says, I belong to Paul, and another says, I belong to Apollos, are you not mere earth-born men? Let me give it to you a different way. And I'm telling you, if you don't like the Bible correcting what the churches teach, then you're going to hate me. Okay? I belong to Apollos, let's say, and wait. I belong to Paul, and another says I belong to Apollos. Okay. I am a Baptist. No, I am Assemblies of God. No difference. This is a division. A house divided unto itself shall not stand. Galatians 5:19-21. Those that do variants and seditions or divisions or heresies, which is basically divisions also, will not enter the kingdom of God. That's right in your Bible, but ignore it. Run away from me. Call me a nut. And then when you're at the judgment, oh gee, I should have listened to that. It was in my Bible and I ignored it. You're not listening to me, you're listening to your Bible. Verse 5. What then is Apollos and what is Paul? They are merely hired attendants. Through those hands you came to trust. And Delich says they are only physical ministers by whose agency you believed. That's not all that clear. A hired attendants through whose hands you came to trust. Even as the master gave to each individual laborer. And that according to what the master distributed to each man. It could be the Lord that it's talking about here. I have it in secular translation. If I was going to write this translation, I would go deeper with it. But I'm telling you, it's secular translation, so we don't have the doctrines imputed into it. Okay. Verse 6. I did the field planting. Planting, the field planting. So he planted the seeds. Apollos did the watering. He poured the water on the planted seeds. But the Almighty caused the structural sprouting to expand. Okay. Verse 7. Therefore, neither the seed planter is a substantial thing, nor the water pourer, but only the Almighty who causes the structural sprouting to expand. He causes it to grow. The Lord gets it to grow. So I plant the seeds, this one comes and waters it, but it's the Lord that gets this person to grow. He's not talking exactly about crops, he's doing an analogy. It's the Lord that gets this person to grow. And remember in Matthew 13, there's 4 categories of people, seed by the wayside, the thorns, and so forth. One of the 4 categories flourishes, the other 3 fall away. So 3/4 don't make it, based on that analogy there. Okay, verse 8. The second planter and the waterer, pourer are a single unit, yet each individual will receive his physical wage, or receive his specific higher wage, higher HIRE, according to the measure of this bone crushing labor. And each man will receive his specific higher wage according to his own muscle strength. Okay, so everybody gets their wages. Okay. Verse 9. For we are fellow laborers belonging to the Almighty. The true God is what Dellett says. I like that better. You are the cultivated plow land. And Dellett says you are the filled field of the true God. The stone structure of the Almighty. And then Dellett goes the physical building of the true God. That you're the building. Yeah, okay, I like that. Building of his body on earth, right? Okay, I guess that's how I would put it. Verse 10. According to the unearned favor of the Almighty, and Dellett is according to the favor of the true God given to me, like a wise master builder, I laid I laid down the foundation based and foundation base, and another builds up, but let each man take heed how he take heed the how he builds upon it. The Salkinson says, let every individual watch intensely how he erects walls upon it. Interesting. For no human is able to position any other foundation stone besides the one already dropped into place. Yeah, that'd be Yeshua, the stone. Dropped into place, which is Yeshua, the designated king. Now, if a man erects upon this foundation stone gold, Delich goes, and if a man build upon this foundation gold, silver, precious stones, or timber, then it goes on logs, timber logs, dried hay, and straw stubble. And then it says silver quarry, that's stones, gems, quarry gems, okay, precious stones. Logs, dried grass, and field stubble. Verse 13, the physical work of each individual will be exposed to open sight for the day of reckoning, judgment day, will make it distinct. For the day will clarify it. Yeah, you'll see clearly what happens on Judgment Day, because it will be uncovered by a consuming blaze or fire. And that identical blaze will assay the precise quality of each individual's worth. If the wall structure that a man erected remains standing, he will receive a physical higher wage, HIRE, or reward. And Delit says, which he built upon it survives the heat, the fire. Their works will be burned up if they're no good. He will take a wage or reward. verse 15. If any man's wall structure is if any man's wall structure, if any man's work, that's better, Delich, is burned up, he will forfeit his wage, yet he himself will be delivered, but only as a brand snatched out of the fire. So there's people that are going to make it into heaven, but their works are going to be burned up. That could be true believers in the churches. Do you not know that you are the physical palace, temple of the Almighty? And that the breath of the Almighty, the Spirit of the Almighty, makes his camp inside you. You see, you're the, and it says the true God. Okay, Delich, let's read Delich. Do you not know that you are the holy shrine, like a temple, right? Holy temple of the true God, and that the Spirit of the true God dwells within you, within your inner collective. Okay, so you're the temple of the Holy Spirit. You don't take the temple, you don't take the place of the temple where the glory of God goes. The glory of God doesn't go in you, okay? And the priesthood's not in you. There's no altar in you and all that, okay? This is false teaching that the false teachers go up with. Oh, we're the temple, we don't need a temple. But that's so silly. What about all the chapters, Ezekiel 40 to 48, talking about the temple? What about in Ezekiel 8 to 11, talking about the next temple? What about Zechariah 14? I could keep going. The book of Joel and everything. It's insane to take that position. It only works with people that are still eating milk, not solid food. And there's a lot of institutions that keep the people on milk. And they don't even keep them on real milk, they keep them on false, artificial milk, fibs, Verse 17, if any man corrupts or ruins the temple of the Almighty will ruin him, for the temple of the Almighty is set apart as clean, and that that is exactly what you are. So it says, if any man destroys the holy shrine of the true God will destroy him. See, what the ultra-Orthodox teach is that God doesn't punish the wicked on earth. Well, that's not true. He punishes the wicked on earth in ways they don't know. And yeah, what about Noah's flood? They were on earth. Okay? What about punishing the Israelites? Well, they'll say, the ultra-Orthodox will say the Israelites get punished on earth, but not the heathen. Well, that's not true. What about the day of vengeance? What about the time of recompense? That's not true. Don't buy it. It's got hard, concrete scriptural evidence contrary. Let no Jeremiah 30:11, Jeremiah 46 verse 28. Let no human deceive his own mind. Let no man Let no human deceive his own mind. If any man among you presumes himself to be analytical in their systems of this current age, let him become a simpleton so that he may attain actual analytical skill. Dellett says, let no man deliver himself. If any man among you thinks he is wise in the matters of this world, of this age, let him become a fool so that he may become wise. Yeah, it says it for itself, verse 19. For the intellectual skill of this current world, or this age, is better. Age is better. No, he says world here too. It might say cosmos. It might be world. Okay, this current world. For the wisdom, for the wisdom of this world is foolishness before the true God. For it is written, He catches the wise in their own clever craftiness. Okay. The Salkinson says he traps the analytical in their own slick traps. Yeah. Verse 20. And further, the master knows the calculations of the analytical, the thoughts of the wise is now it's much better. That they are mere that they are mere vapor. Okay, so they're mere vapor, they just go away. Verse 21. Therefore, let no human boast in the status of mere earthborn men. Yeah, the status that man gives to other men is irrelevant to God. That's why it says he's no respecter of persons. For the entirety of things belongs to you, for all things are your property. Huh. That's interesting. 22. Whether Paul or Apollos or Cephas or the physical globe of raw life, delicacies, or the world system of life or death, or things present or things coming, all is yours. Now we're on 23. And you belong to the designated king, and the designated king belongs to the Almighty, or the true God. Yeshua is the designated king. Okay, now we'll go into chapter 4. Maybe it'll be a little easier to work with. Let humans categorize us in this manner as rowers, subordinate galley servants of the designated king and estate stewards over the hidden secrets of the Almighty, hidden mysteries of the true God. Further from, you see that was just literally translating anointed to say smeared. See, because you take the oil and you smear it on, anointed. See, that's when you get the secular, and you have to take the secular and give it the appropriate words when you write it down. You can't, or you get lost. But when you do the church doctrine versions, you never see the true meaning. Their translations are terrible. Furthermore, what is strictly demanded from estate stewards, moreover, it is required of managers that a man be found faithful for his trust or faith. But to me, it is a very small thing to be judged by you or by a human tribunal of judgment. I do not even judge myself. So he's not paying attention to a human court judging him or something like that. For I am conscious of nothing against my own account, yet I am not acquitted by this, but he who passes judgment on me is the master. Okay, so he's saying that what really counts is God judgment. Therefore, judge nothing before the designated time. Yeah, you don't know how things are going to end up with these people. Until the master comes, who will bring to light, that's Jehovah, who will bring to light the hidden things of the darkness and lay open the intents of the hearts, and men praise will come to every man from the true God. Verse 6, 1 Corinthians 4:6. These things, my brothers, I have applied to myself and to Apollos for your sakes, so that you might learn by us not to exceed that which is written. Don't exceed that. Don't go out of the scriptures. Salkinson, so that through our example, you might fear the boundary. Do not step beyond what is engraved or written in the scrolls, so that not one of you becomes inflated with arrogance or on behalf of the leader, it's Jehovah, against another. So you just stay with the scriptures, is what he's saying. Don't exceed that which is written, lest you dwell with pride for one teacher against his fellow. Delich is doing a better job on this book. I'll tell you that. I'll read Delich first now. For who makes you separate from another? And what do you have that you did not receive as a gift? In other words, you didn't get it from your works, you got it from a gift, thinking what comes from God. And if you received it, why do you boast as if you had not received it? You are already fully, I think it means that they're saying that they got it not as a gift, they got it because they worked for it, they were worthy or something like that. You are already fully satisfied, you are already rich, you have ruled as kings without us, and would that you did rule as kings, so that we also might rule as kings with you. For I think that he's talking about how we're going to be in the future. For I think that the true God has set forth us, the emissaries last of all, as men appointed to it's really hard to work with this. For think that the true God has set forth us, the emissaries, the apostles, last of all, as men appointed to execution. For we have become a spectacle to the world, to supernatural messengers and to human beings. Salkinson, spectacle to the universe, both to cosmic messengers, angels, and to earthborn men. They're elected to die. Every man's elected to die, But they were saying that, get killed for the gospel's sake, like Yeshua. 4:10, chapter 4, verse 10. We are fools for the sake of the anointed, Messiah, Yeshua. I would say Yeshua, but you are prudent in the anointed leader, the anointed Messiah. We are weak, but you are strong. You are held in high esteem, but we are despised. To this very hour we both hunger and thirst and are naked and are beaten with blows and have no fixed dwelling place. And we toil, working with our own hands being reviled. We bless being persecuted. We suffer it patiently. Being defamed, we entreat. So we being slandered, we plead as friends. We have become as the filth of the world, the off-scourging of all things to this day. That's why the two witnesses have the power to burn their enemies up, because if they don't, this is what would happen to them, and we would never set the things right where Israel's the head of the nations. It would never happen. They were not designated to return the kingdom, the apostles. That was not their job. Except Apostle John, the beloved, will be involved in these latter days. Verse 14, I do not write these things to make you feel shame, but to warn you as my beloved sons. For though you should have 10,000 tutors in the anointed, in the Messiah, the anointed, yet you have not many fathers, for in the Mashiach, Yeshua, I guess, in the anointed Yeshua, you have not many fathers. Okay, I begot you through the news of victory. Well, that's the news of victory. Salkinson uses the word through the military victory news. This is the gospel, the good news, and they're referring to it as the news of victory. See, you don't hear this in the church translations, do you? The news of victory, that we're going to be victors, because whose side are they really on? 4:16. I beseech you, therefore, become imitators of me. For this cause I have sent to you Timothy, who is my beloved and faithful son in the master. He refers in Salkinson, it reads, who is referencing Timothy, who is my highly prized and reliable child in the master, in the Lord, who will bring you into remembrance of my ways in the anointed, in Mashiach, in the Messiah, as I teach everywhere in every assembly. So he's basically saying Timothy will bring you back into the teachings if needed, then my teachings are the same all over. See, he had the signs and the wonders to get the people would know he's of God, but he didn't have the power to burn them up, to burn the enemies up, because he wasn't there to bring in the kingdom. Okay. 4:18. Now none of the apostles were. Now some are puffed up with arrogance, as though I were not coming to you, but I will come to you quickly. I will come to you quickly if the Lord wills, and I will know not the speech of them who are puffed up, but their functional power. That's a little vague. Let's see, Salkinson says, and I will cross-examine not the mere speech of those bloated individuals, but actual physical power. So in other words, he's to say, I would examine what they actually did, not just what they say. See, there's a lot of people that will give you they glorify themselves when they talk to you, or they have friends of theirs in conspiracy that will do it. But Paul is sitting there saying, I want to see their works, what they actually did, what are they capable of, what have they done. You see, so like I tell you with the news, with the world leaders, we listen to what they say, but really evaluate them based on their actions, not what they say by itself. For the kingdom of the true God is not in empty words, but in dynamic power. And then Salkinson says this same thing, for the sovereign domain of the Almighty does not rest upon mere talk, but upon concrete physical force. Yeah. What are they doing? Do they got any signs and wonders? What can they do? Are they just a bunch of hot air? And that's what you got with the guys with the buildings on Sunday, 9 to 11 in the morning. Verse 21 of 1 Corinthians 4, the last verse. What is your choice? Shall I come to you with a punitive rod, or in love and a spirit of mildness? See, these were the powers and the things that they had then to get the church into shape. The church was spreading the gospel around the world, but it was only going to run till 70 AD. Then they got scattered in the diaspora, which lasted a long time. Only a small part of us are here in Israel now. And that's not even, without even taking into the account of the lost tribes. There's, I don't know, maybe 25% of us are in Israel, something like that, probably 35%. But when you take into account the lost tribes, we're probably 5-10% most. There's not many, like a remnant is here, but you don't know it to be a remnant because you're not taking into account the lost tribes. Make sense? All right, let's see what's going on in the live stream, if I got any questions. Someone says, saw some posts on X about U.S. warship getting hit and possibly lost. U.S. commander, but not certain if, yeah, it could have been Muslims that put it up, Iranians or something. I didn't hear anything at all about it. X is a very unreliable source. The Son of Man is here. He shattered the pots of the proud. Well, are you saying what? The church is saying Yeshua was praying in himself when he prayed to the Father. That's so absurd. How could he be praying in himself? The other thing, Psalm 110:1, the Lord said to my Lord, sit down at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool. How do they deal with that? They lie, that's all. Um, I don't remember the church. I'm sure some of the churches had an explanation at one time that he prayed to himself. But it says, because it says, me and my Father are echad, which is one. They say they're one and the same. And you see, the word echad mean like that is we're in agreement. We're one in unity. We are in agreement. That's what it means. But what they use that for is they say when they killed Yeshua, they killed God. And then they teach him God is dead. That's what they do. All right, I think I'm okay. All right, I'm going to get a prayer going for us. Maybe I should look and see if there's any news that came out right away. Hold on. This will be fast. See, I have to admit that if a destroyer was hit, the Americans may not reveal it, but then you need to be looking for pictures. But a lot of times they'll use a picture of something else and tell you, oh, it was the battleship that got hit. So, and then they use AI to make a phony picture. See, now I'm really worried for America. This is what we're picking up now. It's really bad. Trump on Air Force One about Iran says they want to make a deal so badly. They called a little while ago. They want to make a deal so badly. I just don't know if they are worthy. I don't know if they're going to honor the deal. They're sort of crazy, to be honest with you. You see, he's back to the lying again. He can't manage his affairs without chronic, easy to detect lies. It's very, very bad. Very, very, very bad. That's a lie. They didn't call him. They're not trying to make a deal with him. Everybody knows that in the Middle East. It's a joke. But he still does it. It's something wrong with him. See, something wrong in Trump's head. You got to understand that. Let me see what else we're picking up now. They were getting some reports from America this morning now. Coastal observation equipment, air defense systems in the coastal area, missile and UAV storage sites, as well as naval capabilities and military logistical infrastructure along Iran's coastline were the targets. So they were working on the coastline. See, he thinks he's going to open up the Gulf of Mexico. He's gone, you know. The Americans also struck bridges deep inside Iran for the first time, railroad bridges. Two bridges in northern and eastern Iran were hit. These bridges lead to the important city of Mashhad or something in northern Iran. Sometimes you'll have a bridge that has train tracks and cars go on the bridge. One such bridge is the Brooklyn Bridge in New York with the subway going along with the cars. I've been on it. Boy, there was a big shopping list that they hit in Iran last night. Trump really did a serious attack, not killing people, just basically equipment, I believe. Uh, they did a job there. The Americans it was a serious attack. He's nuts if he thinks it's going to bring him to a bargaining table seriously. Nothing, you know, we've covered that. You take out the grid, you take out the water desalinators, you take out their oil, and, you know, different things, you're going to get a reaction. What he's doing now is he's not trying to do that. He's trying to force the Persian Gulf to be open by knocking them off on the coast. It's not going to work. I don't think anything could happen. For some reason, like I told you, they like night strikes. Okay, let's get a prayer out. My Heavenly Father, Yehovah, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I pray for me and my wife, all the true believers and their households, that we would have your peace, safety, protection, joy, uh, and shalom, peace, and we would have strength, stamina, and endurance, and your healing and recuperative power would flow through us, and for our animals, pets, as well as ourselves, we would be safe, secure, happy, healthy, and whole. I pray for the peace of Jerusalem. I pray for anybody that needs housing or shelter to have it, to find it, to get it. And those of us that have housing that's got problems and we want other housing, different housing, that too comes to pass in a good way and economical and otherwise. And I pray that people that need a job, that don't have a job or need a better job, or a different kind of job, would find that also in a good way, and it would be good. And that we all have, and those of us that need clients and customers for our business would find those too. And I pray that we all have adequate money and then some extra. And I pray that we would have from the gifts of the Spirit operating in us, including faith, wisdom, and discernment. And I pray for us to understand the Scriptures better, and that I can do better translations and better videos, live streams. Today it was a choppy translation in Corinthians. It was hard to get it to do it, I guess, the way the words are. I'll modify it a little better next time. Okay. See, it's like I could sit with secular books and look at the Hebrew in the ancient days, what the words meant. Or instead of me sitting there for hours and hours and hours, I have AI do it. You got to learn about that. Don't, we use the internet, right? And the internet's used for gambling, porn, dirty deals, all kinds of bad things. But we use it to spread the true gospel too, so don't get too upset. Okay, and now I'm going to pray that B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with that. So I submit that to you, my Heavenly Father, Yehovah. And you guys, if you believers, can agree with it. Now I'm going to do something a little different, spiritual warfare. The different group of people adding on, as you see. My Heavenly Father, Yehovah, I pray for me and my wife, all the true believers, and our families and households, that if any of us have a unclean spirit in us, including the families and households, the unclean spirit is kicked out of these people immediately, never to return again. And if there's any witchcraft or sorcery targeting any of us, any of these people, it's null and void for all time. No value, no effect, and shall never return, nor shall anything similar or in a like fashion ever come back again. And I submit all this to you, my Heavenly Father, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with this as well. And if the enemy throws any darts at any of us, they miss us. I submit this to you, my Heavenly Father, Yehovah B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you guys can agree with these things as well. So I hope you got something out of this, and I don't think today the subject matter was that productive. It could have, I don't know, maybe it's just the way I'm looking at it for some reason, I don't know. But I'm going to try to stick more to the prophecies of Israel and things relating to that. But we'll see what I come up with next time. I'll come up with some good stuff. And I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I'm out.